All right. Hey, Gateway students, welcome back to the podcast. Today is going to look so different because we have our podcast studio host, Mr. John Michaels.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
In the studio.
In my studio.
In your studio. Yeah, not my studio. But today we're going to talk about kind of some perspectives about, like, I'm a millennial. I was born in 1994. You're Gen X. I won't make you disclose when you were born.
1969. Very proud of it.
1969. Okay. So, man, yeah, you are the same age as my in-laws. That's exciting. So this is like a conversation with them, which is perfect. And we're going to be talking about just stuff in the culture, like maybe some perspective of you growing up in the era that you grew up in, and how, you know, Gen Z and Gen Alpha, as they're watching a podcast like this, it might be helpful for them to kind of understand, like, where parents and aunts and uncles and teachers and coaches, like, where kind of their mindset is as we're talking about maybe some more hot button issues in our society, and then kind of how all that ties in with faith. And so excited to dig into that.
Yeah,
we kind of, when we sat down, we were talking a little bit about LGBTQ, transgenderism, kind of where different perspectives might be and kind of where people are at, and like talking about the humanity of all that. And so I guess growing up for you, you were growing up in a different era where it's very different than today. Even when I was in high school, it's very different than what our students are going through right now. As far as the conversation about LGBTQ people, I want to do that too. They're people. We can't just speak as a broad statement for a community or whatever, but talking about the people. So obviously these types of people with different, you know, sexual preferences and orientations didn't just appear overnight. And they've existed for a very long time. Like, throughout history, we see examples of this in different societies and how they treated these people. So as a Gen Xer growing up in America, what kind of was the atmosphere around different sexual orientations when you were maybe in high school?
Well, let me preface by saying we had this quick discussion with all these things like transgenderism, the LGBTQ community, et cetera. When you get social media involved and you get politics involved and you get all these different mechanisms, the individual, the human being, tends to get pushed aside. Yeah. And we're talking about human beings here. Yeah. And so, you know, growing up in the 70s as a little kid, didn't know anything about it, but, you know, in high school in the 80s, you know, we had individuals that it was pretty obvious they had a homosexual bent, and no one really messed with them. I mean, honestly, no one messed with them. It's like, at least you have the backbone and the character to come out and say, this is who I am. Yeah. Don't have to agree with it, but that's okay. No one really thought twice about it. It has definitely, excuse me, it seems in the last, 10 years that it has become more of an agenda-driven type of thing, and everybody's being segmented. But you have to approach things from a scriptural perspective, and you have to remember that you're dealing with individuals, and we all have hopes and dreams and strengths and weaknesses, and understand people are going through a journey, and it really is a journey. And when you talk about something I believe is as serious as, let's say, transgenderism, there's a lot of layers there, and we have to be understanding of that. And the reason we want to be understanding of that is so we can approach it purely, and approach it the way that, say, the Apostle Paul would advise us to approach it. Know your audience. Yeah. Right? Don't shove it in someone's face, kind of mimic them and understand where they're coming from. Because it's our job to share. It's not our job to convert anybody. We can't convert anybody. Yeah. Right.
I think I just want to maybe give some context for maybe students who aren't super familiar, or they're growing in their knowledge. So you mentioned the Apostle Paul and kind of a scriptural approach. So when you're talking about that, the Apostle Paul was a man chosen by Jesus. He had a really crazy story we can read about in the book of Acts. And he went from being a Roman citizen that was also of Jewish background, and then he was in kind of the elites of the Jewish religion in the region. And then he's transformed by Jesus. He goes from being known as Saul. God changes his name to Paul, kind of this symbol of transformation. And then he has the tremendous task of taking this good news of the gospel to Greeks, to Romans, because the Mediterranean world was mostly Greek and Roman dominated, but all of those cultures also had an underlying culture. So like the Hebrew culture was heavily influenced by the Greek culture, right? But it's still the Hebrew culture. And then so he has to contextualize it there, and then contextualize it to those in Greece, and then in modern day Turkey, and like all of these different areas had a different context. And so as we're walking out as believers, it's our responsibility to carry the message of grace that Jesus gives, just like Paul, and contextualize it, but also bring a level of truth. And so that truth, I want to kind of talk a little bit more about humanity, and like the humanness of just people, because we tend to compartmentalize and all that without seeing the person. So you mentioned some of the like policy and politics and all of that. What is your perspective as somebody who's, you know, you grew up in the 70s and 80s, your adult life now, like you're seeing our society today. How do you as a Christ follower seek to find the humanity in each person?
Number one, engage. It's very easy to put walls up and to have a predisposition towards people. But I've learned in the 55 years the Lord has given me on this earth that if you just engage and start asking questions and you're nice, people will open up to you. I think most people are fearful. But if you are, it's all how you approach someone, and take time and get out of your comfort zone and talk to people. If you come across people that you see are going down a different path, then you have some curiosity. You know, people know that if you care about them or not very quickly. Yeah. So just care about people, man. Yeah. You know, and engage.
Yeah. And so just to speak to Gen Z and Gen Alpha, like you guys are some of the most discerning people I've ever met in my life. But you tend to set up walls to keep yourself in a non-offensive capacity. So maybe you could talk. I'm curious to hear your perspective on being non-offensive, but also unoffendable.
So when I was growing up, the biggest difference between the Gen X in terms of our childhood and early or teenage years and the younger generations now is we were not raised to be protected. We were raised to roll around in the mud, to ride bikes without helmets, and roller skates down the street in the middle of the street with traffic. It's
wild.
Wild. Yeah, when you look back, it was wild. But it seems, and my late mother was a fourth grade teacher for 47 years, so I was in and around the education system all my life. You know, these kids now, the Gen Zers, I guess now the Gen Alpha, and even to some extent the millennials were raised to be compartmentalized and protected.
Totally.
Right. And there's kind of an integration of a certain mindset that you were raised with. And that can be a little scary because now you're coming out into a global economy where you have cultures out there that are not like that. They're very aggressive. And you have to be prepared for it. Yeah. So that to me is really the biggest difference. You know, when I was growing up, it was get outside if you want a rough house and come back when the street lights come on. Yeah. You would never see that today.
Yeah. I saw a story recently where there was some kids. It wasn't in my neighborhood, but it was somewhere in Austin. It was a neighborhood in Austin. I can't remember exactly where, but they were outside riding their bikes around in the middle of the day. It was the summertime. And they got the cops called on them because they weren't supervised. And it's like, I think there's a responsibility of Gen Z and Gen Alpha kids and even millennials as now we're parents, like I have a son. And there's a responsibility for us to kind of just chill out a little bit. I think we could still be safe, but it's like not raise a constantly anxious generation. We have to have a little bit of open-handedness.
Right. Well, there's another aspect too. I think we've lost our sense of community. Right. We're not really strong in community in this country. And I can tell you that my global travels in business and in the military, and my wife is from Sao Paulo, Brazil. And I can tell you in the Latin American culture, it's all about family and it's all about community. Well, we live in neighborhoods now. And if you walked out your front door, look to your left or right, 5 houses down, I doubt you would know who lives there. Yeah. Right.
And it's tricky because it's kind of like our houses are like our own oases, as they should be, but also it's like we don't have a neighbor mentality or a village mentality.
Right. Yeah. Although fences make good neighbors, we really have kind of gotten back into our own little bubble, and we all kind of live in our little bubble. I think that's something that has changed over the decades as well. Maybe technology has something to do with it.
Something that's really interesting is, the technology for sure. But my two neighbors, I have Randy on my right side, and then I have Mark on my left or on my right side. I'm like thinking of how I was looking at my house. Randy, defense contractor with the Air Force.
Right.
He's constantly down in San Antonio working at the air base down there. He has sons and sons-in-laws in the military, very military background, history buff, brews his own beer in the garage.
Okay.
He's a brewer here in Leander.
All his shoes are lined up perfectly in the closet.
Yeah, and he is always in the garage doing stuff. So if I'm working in the garage, he's coming over. He roasts coffee too. And so when I'm roasting, he's a great dude. And then on my other side is Mark, and Mark is pretty much opposite of Randy. Mark is, metalhead musician, very, very laid back kind of guy. They have a son and just a great dude. And the two of them have never met, but I'm there in the middle of them. And I'm like, I have common ground with Randy in that, like, history buff. We're both into coffee. Like, we both roast coffee, like I mentioned. World travels. Like, he just finished like some backpacking trip in Spain. Like, he's really cool dude. And then Mark, on the other hand, is like, he grew up like playing music. He grew up like in the church, and now he's in a metal band, and he's like in his 50s, and he's just like just absolutely like cool dude, so laid back. And I'm like, man, like, these two guys, they're so different, and I'm sure that they could still find something in common.
Right.
And so, like, I'm looking for ways to, like, when Randy's outside and when Mark's outside, hey guys, let's hang out, let's have a beer, or like hang out, let's have some coffee.
You got a barbecue grill in your backyard, right?
Yeah,
Perfect.
we could do that. And so, but it's like slowly building out this village, and it's like, if I wouldn't have initiated contact with Randy, I wouldn't known all this cool stuff. Mm-hmm. And there's some things that we disagree on, and we've butted up on those things. We butted heads a little bit, but we're cool. And then same with Mark. And like, it's just like this cool, like, mini village with our 3 houses in a row. And then on the other side of Randy is a new family that just moved in from Colorado. I'm from Colorado. So it's like, we need to initiate the conversation. And then on the other side of Mark is an Indian family, and multi-generational household. And so it's like, man, like, there's so much diversity just in our 4 houses on this street. So it's like, how do we find the commonality?
So I'll give you a clue what I do. So we live in a very dog friendly neighborhood. So I have literally gone up and down the block on both sides, knocked on the doors. Hey, I'm John. I live at 312. This is my dog Sachi. If you have any pets, we'd love to dog sit if you're ever out of town.
Cool.
And that's a good way to kind of break the ice, because you need to know who your neighbors are.
You do.
Right. And so I just looked to my left and looked to my right and said, I don't know who any of these people are, and we live together. Yeah.
And I think there's a part of the Texas culture that a lot of people do adapt to once they encounter it, because we have a lot of transplants.
Oh, I can't tell you how many people have come from Philly, New York, etc., and said, I was scared to come to Texas because I think we're all riding around with guns on our hips. And we do in certain places. A lot of people do, But they're like, I can't believe how friendly Texas is. I'm never leaving. Yeah. Right.
And like, we see that even in the DNA of our beloved HEB. When there's a disaster, they're there on the ground. They beat FEMA, the Red Cross, everybody.
Right.
And it's like, I think as a Christ follower, it's important for us to have a village mentality and to look out and, like, just to loop it back to the beginning, like, to see the humanity in people. And as Jesus went around, he was like, I think of the woman at the well. Like, I've been really studying that specific story. He goes to an area that his background and his family would never be caught dead being in Samaria.
Right.
He's there, he's God in the flesh. So there's a little bit of, like, understanding, like, he's up to something here. And he meets this woman at the well. So he's talking to a woman in a culture where men did not address women. He's in an area called Samaria, which is different from different background. There's some cultural mix up, and they butted heads with the Jewish people and the Samaritans. They butted heads. They weren't friends. And then this woman, like, he brings up all this stuff about her past, but at the end of it, he's like, yeah, and I'm the Messiah. Cause she's like, yeah, well, she immediately goes back to, like, the contention and the thing that, like, will cause some division. And Jesus, like, pushes past that. And he's like, yeah, well, one day we will worship in spirit and in truth. And the Messiah is here. and like he basically reveals himself to her, and then despite all that, she goes into her village and brings people to meet Jesus. So I think there's I'm trying to think of the question that I was going to ask. The question that I have is, what are maybe some steps that you would give to Gen Z and Gen Alpha as they're out and about? Let's say they're running to HEB for their parents to pick up something, or they're at the sibling soccer game and they're just in a crowd of people, or they're at school. They don't have phones in school now.
Really? Shocker.
Yeah, it's a law that was signed in Texas. They can't have their phones, like they can't be on their phone during classroom time. So some schools are really intense about it, but others are a little bit more relaxed, but they let them have their phones, but they can't be on them. So they're having to talk more. So what would you do to encourage Gen Z and Gen Alpha to be probably more village oriented, more community oriented?
That is the question, because I see these kids out a lot and they're very social. Right.
Yeah.
And I think I would look at it kind of the opposite way. I would advise them, number one, really build a good, strong foundation of biblical scripture and knowledge, because we talked about this before, because there's a lot of different churches out there. And it really is up to the individual to walk in and be able to sit and listen to who's behind that pulpit and decide and decipher what he's or she's really saying. Right. Is it a live church? Is it an affirming church? Is it a dead church? Is it a real church? Et cetera, et cetera. And number two, just remember it's how you present yourself. Smile. Right. Just be open to meeting people, and the Spirit will guide you and lead you. But always understand that when you're going through difficulty, and this is something I would tell them truly, when you're going through difficulty, it's natural to think you're the only one going through it. But when you get through it, you realize you're not, and it's a very common thing. Right. And just understand people are going through things, even though they might be smiling at you. Just assume that they're going through something. Make yourself available.
Right. That's good. Just like not doing the Southern, how you doing? But like,
bless your heart.
How are you actually doing? Like, how are you really?
Yeah, I'm around. I'm available.
Right. That's good. That's good. You mentioned church stuff. I want to get to that. But I did want to ask, with some of your background, executive level, businessman, all of that, Gen Z going into a job interview.
Here we go. Here we go.
What are the questions that, as an executive, as a boss, that you would that would resonate with you? Like, Gen Z asks this about your company or your organization. Like, what would be the thing that would set them apart from any other applicant?
If I'm talking to a kid right out of maybe high school or college or even the military, right? I appreciate people being honest and asking, what is the opportunity for me here? Right. I mean, what can I learn? What can I learn from you? What does the training look like? And the one thing that I would advise young kids who are kids, I mean, everybody's a kid to me right now. People do what's inspected, not expected. So do what's expected, but also know that you're going to be inspected. And if you do both, you're going to do great. Right. And so I think that the most important thing these young guys and women can do is be honest and ask, what do you need from me? I have an understanding of the role. Here's what I would like to achieve in the next 3 to 4 years.
Cool.
Right. And I think that sets the expectation that, hey, you're not just a rubber stamp. You're here to learn, and you're also trainable. And I would also tell the employer, look, I'm very trainable, because that's so important. Whatever you've done in your past to get you here is great, but we have a method of doing it. We have a culture, and that is the most important thing, is to be able to fit into the culture. Right. Of any organization.
And it's also okay to be honest and real and not just try to get the job, because it's eventually it's a lot more awkward to be fired from something that isn't a good fit. Than to not ask the right questions early on. And
today that happens quicker and quicker.
Definitely.
Right.
So with the advent of technology and social media, more and more people are not getting jobs or getting fired from jobs due to content that they post or things posted about them.
Right.
So how would you, what would you expect from an employee or an applicant when it comes to their social media stuff? Like, what would be a red flag for you that you see on their social media?
So here's what I would tell any young guy, gal coming up through school or coming up through college, coming out in the working world, just understand once it's out there forever. I've been in the enterprise technology for 30 years. I know more about tech than I'll forget more about tech than most people have learned, at least on the sales and business development side. So just be mindful. There's a time and place and a platform for everything, but understand people have access to it. Not everybody's going to agree with you. Yeah. And that's okay, right? As far as sexuality, absolutely not. Don't put anything sexual out there. If you want to discuss your politics, do it in a smart way. Anything else like that, share your opinion, share your views, but you don't have to go extreme. You don't have to come off angry, because these systems, these AI systems now track you, and they can find you on social media. And if you do things like OF and things like that, well, guess what? There's something called facial recognition, and they can find you. And there's ethics clauses to when you work for an organization. So you need to be aware of that. But if you just have situational awareness and you have wisdom about you, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah. I think that's good too, is like who you follow really does matter. There's been people that have been in my close circle, and I just am curious. And so like I'll be messing around like social media. I'll check on certain influencers or talking heads or podcast hosts, and I'll see, oh, this person follows them. Oh man, like I thought differently about them before I knew that. And so it's like,
isn't that crazy?
It's wild. And so, but I'm like, also, okay, I know that I can just go and talk to them about this. Like, hey, you follow so-and-so. What's up with that? Or, and so there's some accountability that comes with being online. It's not as anonymous.
And I think a lot of people are going to, and they've been feeling it for at least 10 years. I mean, if you remember the shock jock, Anthony Cumia, who had a big radio show in New York. Well, he went and posted something online, and that's what got him fired. And he made millions. If it could happen to someone like that, it can happen to anybody. Yeah. And there's a lot of people who are going to now feel that pain because of that. So just, isn't it crazy? If someone clicks a button to follow because of something that interested you, and you may not have listened to that content for years, but it's in your tracker, and now people are making assumptions about you. Yeah, that's the world we live in.
Yeah, that's good. Sweet. Sweet. Well, thank you, John, for conversation about all of that from your perspective. Thank you for sharing your Gen X wisdom with us young bucks. And
I hope it does someone some kind of good.
I think it will. And so thank you for coming. Next episode, we're going to talk just a little bit more about churches, talking about the differences of churches, how to find a good church, how to determine if it is a good church, or maybe one that isn't such a good fit. And so, yeah, that's probably mostly for our kids going into college. But we're excited to have a resource and to share a little bit more perspective in the next episode. So thank you for joining us, Gateway students. We'll see you on the next one.